Hi Fatima, it's me Yeha, and so today's video is about the homework review, as I previously mentioned in the last video, and also about the exercises of lesson 12. So let me start with the exercise on lesson 12. So just go on right away. First one. Even though one studied much more than the other studied, both students similarly got the same grade on the test. So in this case, there is one error called redundancy here. So it says even though one studied much more than the other studied, but we use something called like helping verbs. So instead of using studied twice, we can use just did for the second one, because we need to avoid redundancy in this case. So the problem here is redundancy. Yeah, and the other parts are all okay. And for the second one, math is Mark's favorite subject. He is naturally very skilled in it. So in this case, actually we're dealing with the first concept we have learned in the previous video, which is comma splice. So actually, comma splice, I have mentioned it for like about several times in our class too. So I believe you would already like familiar with it. So here, there's a comma here. And the comma connects the two sentences, the two independent sentences. The first sentence is of math is Mark's favorite subject, and second, he is naturally very skilled into it. But in this case, when we're connecting the two independent sentences, we cannot use a comma just by comma in order to connect the two sentences. We need some transition words sometimes, and we need some other things rather than a comma. So this is something called comma splice, as I mentioned. Yeah. And number 3, although it has taken me 3 decades, I've realized that not everything in my life is either black or white. Here it says there is something we have learned last week about standard phrase, but we didn't really delve into it deeply, but I just mentioned during class. Here it says not everything in life is either black or nor white. But in standard phrases, we must use either or either with only with or. When we're using nor instead of it is quite an error because it's a standard phrase and we should keep in mind of it. We should use either and or and neither and nor together. It is all a set, a pair of it. So we should erase this and change it into or. Yeah. And number 4, moving on. I don't think that teaching for most is simply a job. Teachers often genuinely care about their students. Well, so this is quite easy because there is no error. Well, as I mentioned in these exercises, there are also some answers that contain no errors, so don't be confused. And 5, because I deactivated my social networking account, but I now feel disconnected from all my friends who live far away. Well, this kind of sounds a little bit weird because the first sentence doesn't really connect to the next sentence over here. There is a transition word called but the meaning itself doesn't really connect because it says because. It starts with because, but it ends with but. So it's kind of weird. So the transition word has some kind of problem. Since we already have because in front of the first sentence or like first phrase, then the clause itself is being just naturally connected just by using because in front of it. So we don't need any transition words here. Yeah, so I'll continue our lesson. So number 6, I know it was an irresponsible decision to stay out past curfew. Furthermore, I had so much fun with my friends that I think it was worth getting grounded. In this case, the transition word furthermore isn't really appropriate for the sentence because the first sentence and the second sentence is like matched through by the meaning of contrast. So in order to express the meaning fluently, we should not use furthermore, but we should use something that really shows up the contrast between the two sentences. So it will be appropriate to use but or like although, something like that for the transition word. Yeah. And number 7, it says, my favorite book is 1,000 pages long, but it still feels too short every time I read it. So in this case, there's a colon between but and the first sentence. But as I said, normally when we're using colon, we must have an explanation after a colon, which explains about more details and further information about the first sentence. So yeah, instead of putting a colon between the two sentences, we must put something like a should use instead of comma. Yeah. So the colon has an error here. And number 8, Joan not only is fully qualified for this job, as well as very highly recommended by her peers. So in this case, it says that not only and also as well as, but we learned something about not only and but also. When we're having not only in the first sentence, then we should have but also, or it could be but in short. So as well as, it doesn't really fit to the sentence because it isn't the right match with not only. And what do we call this error? It's called standard phrase. Standard phrase. Not only and but also is a pair. Well, also can be just deleted. So as well as, this should be changed into but also. Okay. So moving on to number 9. I drink coffee in the morning every single day, but today I decided to eat fruit instead. So again, here is a semicolon before but. Semicolon. But again, as I explained, semicolon is kind of explaining something like that really almost equivalent meanings, but in different phrases. So semicolon shouldn't be here, and instead of semicolon, we should put normally a comma before but. And moving on to number 10, the reason we scaled the side of the mountain was because we wanted to get to the peak faster. Well, I'll give you some time to think because it's kind of a picky one. So here it says there are 2 words expressing that we're explaining something about reason. So in the first subject, we have the reason, and then after was, there is because. So because is a word we use when we're explaining in reason, and also the reason we express in order to explain the reason. So yeah, that's what it is. And in this case, this error is called redundancy. We should not repeat the two in the same meaning of the word into different forms of words. So redundancy. So it's an error, so we should erase because in this case. Instead of because, we can say was that. Yeah. Okay. So I've solved the exercises, and now I'm going to solve the review one. Okay, so let's start the homework review. So starting with number 7, although he always wanted to go to Maine, he never managed to move there. Okay, so in this case, the error is in there, as you can see. So we've learned previously about there that it's a contraction, which is a combination of two words. It's kind of shortened. So I believe you would know that this is they are, the contraction of they are. But here we don't have any reason to have they are because there's nothing after they are. I think they're kind of confused there, as it should be there. When we're just thinking about the meaning of the words. So there is not correct and there is okay. Oh no, I'm gonna write the contraction thing too. Contraction. Just to remind you. Yeah, that's an error. And number 8. Dairy farmers, environmentalists, and government officials are collaborating on a project that will reduce methane emissions by as much as 30%. So the error here is that dairy farmers, environmentalists, and government officials, they're all kinds of, we should put the things in equal position. Dairy farmers, environmentalists, and government officials. So there should not be a semicolon between and government officials and environmentalists. So semicolon should not be here. And as in front of environmentalists, there's a comma. So instead of putting the semicolon, we should put a comma here because they are all in equal position technically. So it's not correct here. Okay, so moving on to number 9. Anna Haynes, my old teacher from when I was in 2nd grade, just got back in touch with me. Well, since there's no comma, it feels like Anna Haynes, there's just one noun, and then there's my old teacher from when I was in 2nd grade just got back in touch with me. But in this case, we should find the subject and verb. All sentences have subject and verb in a sentence. So to find the subject, Anna Haynes would be the subject. And from my old teacher to 2nd grade, it will be a modifier. I don't know if you remember this. It's quite a long, we learned about this. So modifier, just to remind you. So modifier is a descriptive phrase that gives some details about the explanations and it gives some extra information, but it's not really central to the sentence structure itself. So what I mean by saying that modifiers are not really central to structure, it can be deleted or eliminated. So in order to eliminate it, we need to have a comma before it and after it. So in this case, the verb is got back. And just following the concept of modifier, if we delete the phrase in between the commas, we can say Anna Haynes just got back in touch with me. And you can see that the modifier provides some extra information about the whole sentence. It puts some extra information about Anna Haynes, who Anna Haynes is. Yeah. So moving on to number 10. Yeah, I can think of a very good reason for your poor grades in school, your lack of interest. Whoa, this is kind of shocking. Yeah. And so I don't know if you noticed this, but number 10, I can think of a very good reason for your poor grades in school, your lack of interest. There's nothing like modify in this case because there's no error. Sometimes there are some questions that have no error here. And number 11. I just read a compelling criticism of painter Pablo Picasso's Guernica. Guernica, I guess. For in this case, as I mentioned previously in class, when we're putting one's occupation in front of his or her name, we don't need any commas or like commas in between the two words, or rather after that, because it's just expressing their occupation and name together. So it's kind of be like it's kind of a noun. So the commas can be eliminated in this case. Yeah, so moving on. Number 12. After working all day, Ashley found that her legs were sore, her arms were tired. Well, as you can see, there are some kind of like separate sentences in just one sentence that kind of not make sense. So in between, Ashley found that her legs were sore and her arms were tired, I think we should put some transition word "and" in this case without any comments, because two sentences should be connected. And yeah, so these are my second video for like homework review and also for the exercises. I think the next video will be about English literature. I would be really happy to read some short stories with you. I guess it will be O. Henry's. Yeah, and I think it would be okay for that. And if there's anything you want to learn more about this, I think you can leave some comments on it so that I can like see it and read it, and then I could reflect those things into my class. So yeah, see you in the next video. Bye.